Texas A&M fans, I'm sorry.
You are Locked On College Football, smothered and covered, with your host, Barrett Sallee. Your one-stop shop for everything college football. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey, thank you for checking out College Football Smothered and Covered. My name is Barrett Sallee. Appreciate you checking out the show. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that notification bell, share this show. Today's show brought to you by FanDuel. Your first $5 bet gets you $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's right. $5 gets you $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Only at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Okay, it's Monday, so we have two staples in the show. Of course, we will get to SEC power rankings here in a little bit, but you know what it is. You love it. It's Mea Culpa Monday, which means I get to tell you how dumb I am with things that I said, things that I did, things that I expected from last week that were totally and completely wrong. And we're going to start in College Station. Texas A&M fans, I didn't think you had that in you. I really didn't. LSU was an underdog. I thought they'd win by double digits. I truly did. I thought LSU's defense was fully capable of shutting down whatever happened on that offense. Now, I know Marcel Reed came in and that was a curveball, but you should prepare for a guy like that. If you're Brian Kelly or Blake Baker, you have to know that, hey, yeah, Connor Wegman's there, but Connor Wegman's been hurt. He's still coming back. He's been inconsistent throughout his Texas A&M career. So is there a chance that Reed comes in? Yeah, you have to prepare for that. So the idea that LSU can just say, yeah, we didn't know it was coming. Well, that's on you. That's on you. And look, I think any great team capitalizes and takes hold of momentum, right? It's like a pitcher. Your team gets you 4 runs. Your pitcher comes out, you need a shutdown inning. That's exactly what Texas A&M's defense did. Now, we can sit here and talk about the offense, and we will, but the defense for Texas A&M deserves so much credit because they just kept that momentum going, getting in Garrett Nussmeier's face, forcing those turnovers, allowing the offense to keep clicking, giving the ball back to Marcel Reed. It was phenomenal. It was, I was sitting there in my basement watching that game in the first half thinking, man, Texas A&M, they are about to get blown out of their own building. I truly thought that. I didn't expect it. And so now moving forward, Texas A&M is in a perfect spot. And I wrote this for my Sunday morning wrap on Outkick. You can go read it. And the headline, the first bullet point is Texas A&M essentially punched its ticket to Atlanta. And I truly believe that because you can say, hey, look, at South Carolina is tough. Auburn figured it out. So at Auburn is tough. And you're right. Both of those road games are tough. If you've ever been to Willie B, and I know Texas A&M fans have, it's a tough place to play. Jordan-Hare, in my opinion, when it gets cranked up, is one of the top 5 places to play. Maybe even only behind Death Valley. Now, A&M fans know all about that. If you remember 2 years ago, Brian Harsin got fired. Carnell Williams was the interim. That was a terrible Auburn team. Texas A&M comes into Jordan-Hare. And look, I've never seen a crowd like that, especially for a bad team. So A&M fans know all about it. So The idea, look, I don't think the schedule is difficult. At South Carolina and at Auburn before the Texas game. Yeah, those 2 road games, challenging. Everybody's got challenging games. Everybody has challenging games. And so Texas A&M, with 3 games to go, with a 1-game lead on everybody and a tiebreaker against LSU, you're sitting pretty. You're sitting pretty. So you have to put it into proper context. And I put that out on X that, you know, it essentially, Texas A&M essentially punched its ticket. And everybody's like, oh, South Carolina, Auburn, that's a tough schedule. Yes, it is a tough schedule. Everybody has tough schedules. Everybody. Either Alabama or LSU is going to lose in a couple weeks. Ole Miss or Georgia are going to lose in a couple weeks. You still got all these things that are going to happen between now and the end of the season. So Texas A&M, with 3 games left, with road games against 2 average at best, at sometimes mediocre, looking at you, Auburn, at worst, you're still sitting pretty. You're still sitting very, very pretty, especially since you can still own a head-to-head against another team that you're vying for the SEC championship game with, and that's Texas, and that's at Kyle Field. So I was wrong, Texas A&M. I was wrong about you. I was wrong about your team. I was wrong about LSU and the preparation, because the lack of preparation for Marcel Reed is inexcusable. Now, sticking with the Texas A&M theme, Mike Elko, you and I just became best friends. You and I just became best friends. Take a look at this graphic. And if you're listening on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, I will read it to you. But in the post-game press conference, Mike Elko, this is a real program. It is not fake. It is not a politician running this program talking fast and BSing everybody. Mike Elko is a man after my heart, man. That is 100% shade at Jimbo Fisher. Now, I know there's some controversy, and Mike Elko's not going to say it. It could be Brian Kelly. It could be a, sort of a vast sort of blanket statement of everybody else in the SEC or college football. No, 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 no. That is direct shade at Jimbo Fisher. How do we know? Talking fast and BSing everybody. That's exactly what Jimbo Fisher did. He talked fast and he BS'd everybody. You cannot type fast enough to transcribe Jimbo Fisher quotes. Can't do it. You can't sell a program any better without a foundation than Jimbo Fisher did. Texas A&M fans know this. He's not talking about Brian Kelly. Brian Kelly doesn't talk fast, and quite honestly, he doesn't BS anybody. He's very straightforward. And story time with Barrett. I'm not supposed to use third person, but I did. Let's go back to the 2014 BCS championship game after the 2013 season. I think it was January 6th, 2014. I'm in Pasadena, and I was there for a week. Actually, I was in Newport Beach. That's where the media hotel was, but the game was in Pasadena, obviously. But I asked Jimbo a very simple question about Damian Craig, who A&M fans know. He's been on that staff. He's been on Jimbo Fisher's staff in a lot of different places. He's been all over the SEC. In that particular season, he was at Auburn with Gus Malzahn, and that was a year after he left Florida State with Jimbo Fisher. They just happened to be playing in the national championship game together. And I asked Jimbo, I was like, look, man, are you worried about Damian Craig stealing your signs? Which is totally legitimate. Like, it's like a pitcher. That's why you disguise your signs. Are you worried about Damian Craig knowing what you call? And Jimbo looked at me with this Saban-like death stare and says, no, why not? Didn't work for Coley. Coley being James Coley, former assistant. He was at Miami at the time. And I kind of sat there and I was like, okay. So I wrote that story. I was working at Bleacher Report at the time. And what do you know? 2 days later in the game, first half, which Auburn dominated, there's Damian Craig right next to Gus Malzahn, flat-brimmed hat, way down low, looking through the little curve in it, like the little tiny curve in his hat, looking right at the Florida State signs. Second half rolls around. What does Florida State have? Giant banners up, multiple people flashing signs. So after the game, after Florida State won, there's a massive press conference. And then the next morning, there's a 30-minute press conference, and we call it the hangover press conference. And you guys probably know what Stetson Bennett, when he was hammered after Georgia's first national, that press conference, right? And I asked Jimbo, I was like, hey, why'd you put the banners up? Were you worried that Auburn was stealing signs? And he kind of looked at me like defeated. Yeah. And he gave me some BS answer. I don't know what it was, but whatever. It was funny. Story time. Love story time. Speaking of stories, we're going to take a break. But when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about those Nebraska Cornhuskers. It's college football smothered and covered. Today's show brought to you by our good friends at FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page that you place your bet. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Nebraska, I thought you were going to get smoked. I really did. In fact, when we did future headlines last Friday, I said, Ohio statement. Ohio statement. Well, the statement wasn't made by Ohio State. It was made by Nebraska. Now, I know the final score is not what you'd like, but man, Matt Rhule has that program going in the right direction defensively. We're not going to talk about offensively with Satterfield. If you've listened to SiriusXM, you know exactly what I feel about him. Matt Rhule needs to get rid of him. But defensively, owning the offensive line, absolutely owning Ohio State, getting the ball back to your offense consistently, short drives, owning the time of possession, all traces back to that defense, which had Will Howard running for his life, which had Quinshawn Judkins and Travion Henderson all in their fields, had no idea what to do or where to go. Nebraska's on the right track. Before the season, you looked at their schedule, and I looked at their schedule, and I was like, look, they might be undefeated heading to that Ohio State game. Obviously, that didn't work out, but Matt Rhule's the right guy at the right program to lead them back to Big Ten contention. And before the season, I was like, look, no, Nebraska's not going to get into Big Ten contention. You got Oregon and Washington coming in, and you got USC coming in. So, yeah, they're probably going to be pretty good in 2024. But beyond that, where's the future? What's the goal? Is the goal to be Iowa, where you kind of contend once every 3-4 years, but pretty much you're just sort of average? My mind's changed. My mind's changed because in the Big Ten this year, I think it's abundantly clear that everybody's going to beat up on each other. just like the SEC. It's good. Everyone's going to beat up on each other. So schedule matters more now in these super conferences than it has at any other time. Texas A&M has a pretty easy schedule. We talked about that last segment. Nebraska has an easy schedule. We talked about that right now. We're talking about that right now. So Nebraska, it's not just that you own the line of scrimmage and you played very well, albeit in a loss to Ohio State. It's that you showed me and you showed the world that you can be the team that you were back in the glory days. Maybe not to that level, but can you make a playoff in this day and age? Yeah. Can you win it? It would take a special set of circumstances. I'd say probably not, but at least you're in the discussion. At least you can put yourself in a position where you can say, okay, maybe. And more importantly, Matt Rhule can sell the idea of Nebraska being competitive in the Big Ten. I mean, hell, Indiana is. And look, I'm not slighting Indiana. Well, you know, it's Indiana. I mean, how can you not? It's like, this is not supposed to happen, right? Illinois is not supposed to happen this way. But they did. They are. And even historically in the Big Ten, Minnesota, the year that Alabama got in 2017, Minnesota would have knocked Alabama out of the playoff had they not lost in the Big Ten championship game. That's a real thing that happened. And now in the Big Ten, the door is wide open, and you can have some very, very bizarre circumstances where it sets up where Nebraska is in perfect position to get in. So it wasn't just that Nebraska played Ohio State close. It's that Nebraska showed that it can live in the new look Big Ten and be just fine. I was very impressed with Nebraska. So Mea Culpa Monday that's it. We got two things that I'm embarrassed about. Honestly, though, I had to dig because you looked at Friday 5, my picks did pretty good. I think I was 4-1 against the spread. So Nebraska, Texas A&M, I apologize, but I did have to dig deep. Patting myself on the neck back. There we go. Don't forget to join the subtext group. Sign up in the link below, whether you're watching or listening. You can text me directly. I can text you back. We can talk like we're normal friends, like we're boys, like we're friends, whatever. So make sure you do that. We'll take a break when we come back. SEC Power Rankings. It's college football smothered and covered. Today's show brought to you by Gametime. The Gametime is just your perfect place to get any ticket you need. Sports, concerts, whatever. They have everything you need. It's the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. Filter only incredible deals on great seats with Gametime picks. See the view from your seat on your phone before you buy. All-in pricing shows your total cost up front and buy tickets in seconds with just 2 tabs. They have job loss assurance. If you lose your job and need a refund, Gametime has you covered. Used Gametime, I should say, to get Luke Bryan tickets over the summer at Truist Park. Kind of an ad-lib thing. My mother-in-law came in and was like, hey, you want to stay and watch the kids? And she was like, yeah, we'll spend the night. And I was like, okay, we're going to go to concert. Go to Gametime. Looked it up on the app right there. You can do it on the app, or you can go to gametime.co to go get your tickets as well. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime picks. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off your first purchase. That's LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? It's game time. SEC power rankings. That's not the right graphic. SEC power rankings. I don't have them for you. The graphic is wrong. The graphic is not there. So I'm just going to read them off to you. Georgia, Texas A&M, and Texas at number 3. Tennessee, Alabama, LSU coming in at number 6. Ole Miss, Vanderbilt, South Carolina, Florida, number 10, Arkansas, 11, number 12, Missouri. Auburn chimes in at number 13, Kentucky at 14, Oklahoma at 15, and then Mississippi State at 16. Okay. It's pretty clear that Georgia should be number 1. I moved Texas A&M over Texas, and Longhorn fans, you got pissed. But why not Texas A&M? It's figured out its stride. It figured out its identity. And it did it kind of by accident, honestly, because you had to have a poor performance from Connor Wegman to figure out your true identity against LSU. But Tennessee and then Alabama. Why do I have Alabama over LSU? And this kind of could go back to Mea Culpa Monday as well. The Crimson Tide, I did not think that Alabama was capable of that performance. The kind of performance where it looked at a lesser opponent and did not play down to that lesser opponent, because Alabama's played down to almost every opponent. USF, Carolina. Obviously, they have the losses. They even played down. They even struggled in the second half in the biggest win of the season against Georgia. Played awful. So it is a big deal for Alabama to take Missouri and strangle it to death. I don't care that Brady Cook was injured. I don't care that Drew Pine came in and threw 3 picks. I don't care that Noel wasn't there. It hadn't mattered before because Alabama was still playing down to its opponent. It didn't on Saturday. And that matters. That matters. So Alabama 5th over LSU, I think is fair. Because LSU blowing that lead matters a lot. LSU struggling against Texas A&M in the second half, especially when they didn't prepare for Marcel Reed and Garrett Nussmeier threw 3 picks in a massive game. That matters. Now, Vanderbilt at number 8. I kept the Doors at number 8 because they damn near beat Texas. Tom Luganbill and I talk about this a lot on SiriusXM, that losing to Vandy is not a bad loss anymore. You saw in that Vandy game, well, we know Diego Pavia is legit, but I think it was very important to see that defense play extremely well. Now, I know Quinn Ewers, after that first interception, was money, but he was money underneath because he knew that he could not stretch the field against a Vanderbilt team that is pretty solid on the back end. That matters. So even in a loss, Vandy deserves so much credit for being a legitimate upper middle tier team. Now, I moved Auburn up above Kentucky and Oklahoma and Mississippi State. Why above Oklahoma? I had Oklahoma fans all pissed off, and they're usually pissed off at me, honestly, for reasons I don't even know, because most of them are accurate about where they sit in the SEC. And I know the head-to-head is the head-to-head, but they're power rankings. What you're doing now matters. And we looked at that graphic last week about where Auburn is in terms of explosive plays and preventing explosive plays. And it's right up there with legit playoff contenders, undefeated teams, all that stuff. Right? And they didn't turn the ball over all that much. Peyton Thorne threw a pick on the first drive, but for the most part, they held on to the football. They remembered that Jarquez Green is a dude that exists on the roster. And then he rushed for over 200 yards. So the fact that Auburn didn't turn the ball over on the road didn't matter because at home they do too, and realized after the first quarter that all they need to do is run the dang ball. That matters. That matters in a huge way. And I tell you what, Auburn's going to mess around and upset somebody. They are going to mess around and they are going to upset somebody. Now, I know it might be too little too late to make a bowl game because the idea that they would go undefeated from here on out, not likely. However, if they play like they did against Kentucky and they continue to get those explosive plays and they continue to limit the opposition's explosive plays, they're going to upset somebody. They might upset Alabama. They might upset Texas A&M because that can be a good team. It really can be. Turnovers have just absolutely killed them. It is really remarkable how that team has struggled throughout the course of the season. It's really remarkable. That will do it for this edition of College Football Smothered and Covered. Really appreciate you guys checking out the show. Don't forget to subscribe, give it a thumbs up. That's how we get this show out to the masses. If you subscribe and you give it a like, that gets this through YouTube's algorithm out to the entire world. And if you're listening, share it with your friends. You know that little share button, usually it's a little square with an arrow going up. Use that. Text it to your friends. Email it to your friends. That's how you get this show out to the masses. Thanks for making this your first listen. Hey, for your second listen, go check out Locked On College Football. Spencer McLaughlin does a great job covering the nation as well. And of course, don't forget to sign up for that subtext group. Link is below. Use promo code college. You can text me directly. You can text me if you're having a bad day, if you hate me, if you see something on X that you can't stand, let me know. Because I'm not going to respond to all the X mentions. Can't do that. There's too many of them. But if you sign up for the subtext group, you can chat with me personally. Have a great Monday. We'll talk to you Tuesday.